Friends, welcome back to the Speakeasy podcast. Today I have my personal nutritionist that I adore, Brooke, on the show to talk about the disconnect between our bodies and our minds, specifically as Christian women. I have shared a lot about the last 6 months and the process of slowing down and getting back in my body and in my life and the impact that has had. And the reality is that is something that a lot of us as Christian women are walking around struggling with. We are in fight or flight, everything feels urgent, and like everything feels like too much. And then we can't figure out why our health is tanking, or why we're snapping at our kids, or why our blood work looks terrible, or why our appetite is bizarre. And the reality is that a holistic approach is so necessary. And Brooke is genuinely one of the only people that I know that is offering a actually holistic approach where she knows a ton about nutrition and about food and about working out, but she also brings the incredibly important spiritual aspect and nervous system work and brings everything back to the Lord and how He is the originator of every good thing and that He is our anchor. And so I think that we really covered the spectrum here. If you have kids, if you don't have kids, if you're stressed out, or if you're in a pretty good place, there's something for you in this episode. It's super personal and vulnerable, but I think it's a necessary conversation. Brooke, welcome back to the Speakeasy.
Thank you. I always love talking with you.
I know, me too. This is such an easy interview, and also it's so necessary because I mean, like in my real life, in my normal day-to-day life, like the conversation that you and I are going to have is the conversation that my friends are having. It's the conversation that people are sliding into my DMs and wanting to talk about, which I think if we're going to like cast a wide net, it's essentially like the disconnect between our bodies and our souls kind of. And I want to talk about this specifically, like our health and our wellness from that Christian standpoint. Because I mean, I was thinking about it just as I was preparing to sit down with you, and I just kept thinking, like, how wild is it that Christians aren't at the forefront of that conversation? Like the ones with direct access to our Creator aren't leading this like functional health conversation. But I see more and more people stepping into it. I'm super thankful for that. And so because we could just jump right in and start like back and forth, but I want to let people kind of get to know you a little bit. And so tell us a little bit about what you do, and more specifically, what I love about you is that you were able to like identify a need and a gap, and you have stepped in to fill it. And so let's chat about that a little bit too.
Yeah, I feel like God's been like nudging my career path, even in times I didn't even recognize it, but when I look back. So I've been in the health and fitness field for over 20 years at this point. And I started as a personal trainer in my 20s. And it was like, at that point, you just care about how you look in a bikini. And about midway through my career, I left a pretty awful relationship, and my dad got really sick at that time frame, and my body gained 20 pounds in like a 4 to 5 month period of time with no explanation. And I remember going to doctor's offices so frustrated, not getting any answers. I would leave in tears because they would be asking me questions that, like, I'm already in the fitness field. There's already a lot of things that I was already doing. I was already doing the quote unquote calorie deficit and working out and all the things that, we all know to do. And I would just felt so hopeless and so unheard. And that ultimately is what led me to a functional approach. And I did get some relief, but when I was going to functional practitioners, they were just doing testing and then they were putting me on supplementation, and then it was kind of like sending me on my way. And somebody who already had education in the field, I still had a lot of questions because this was a whole new world that was never something that I had explored before. But it sent me back to school to learn more about it. And I remember just like being in awe of how God designed our bodies as I was sitting in school and learning this. And I was like, gosh, if I knew these things when I was 15 or 16, or like we're what I call like the snack wells generation, where everything in our food was low fat and like everything about our food was like about how it was going to make us look, not
While
about.
being like crazy processed.
Yes, yeah. And magazines were like 10 pounds in 10 days, right? Like that was what we
Hmm.
grew up with. So I just remember thinking, like, gosh, we've had this so backwards. And after our daughter, I started to take a completely different approach after going through school. And I felt so much better after having her than I ever did before kids. Where people tell you it's all downhill after you have kids.
Hmm.
I was like, why do I feel better now? So it really just led us down this path of starting to really see like how much and how far away we have gotten from how God designed us to function and feel in our body, that it's really what kind of led to Faithfully Nourished existing. Is that's how when we work with women, it's we have to do some undoing of
Mm.
what we've experienced, but we also really have to get into like, yeah, what does it say from a biblical standpoint? And how can what we know about the body show us like how intricately God designed us, and we can use that to understand how to support ourselves in it too.
And I've even seen you just in the time that I've known you lean more and more into the spiritual side of things. That I think
Yeah.
when I first connected with you, that was a part of it,
Yeah,
but I've watched it expand into your practice really significantly. And I feel like that has to have an impact on the people that you're working with.
it does. Through my own journey, the functional approach got me really far in feeling good in
Hmm.
my skin. But there was always this part of my body that didn't fully feel healed. And I started to obsess like my marriage and like places I had reactions in my marriage and how I showed up in motherhood and things I had experienced in my life. And there was this part that like I wasn't getting connection from in my
Mm.
church or getting nurtured in my church. And that's where a lot of the disconnect of my body of like, why does my gut have this reaction when certain things happen? And why do I get anxiety over certain things? And no one was really discussing with me like the physiological reaction of my body and how I could start to pay attention to it and how God can use those things, right, to like show us where we need to help support ourselves. So I spent the last year going through a biblically informed, Holy Spirit led, like really understanding trauma from that
Mm.
standpoint and the body's impact of it. And then I've been in school to be a Christian counselor, and just the piecing of those things together has made a significant impact for me. But I can see it in our clients of like, but let's talk about
Hmm.
why are your labs off in the first place? Because
Hmm.
your labs don't just get thrown off, they're showing dysfunction, but like what's causing the dysfunction has to be addressed too. And that's a
Yeah.
huge thing the functional world misses.
Yes, it is. And it's definitely like, okay, we see this, here's how to fix it. And
Yes.
a lot of the time those people are saying they're getting to the root, and it's like, oh, but are you, if you're like not going beyond just what the data is showing you
Yeah.
and like
If I
why the data looks like that.
Yeah, why we have to address why you don't take a break during the day. Like why sitting still and being bored for 10 minutes is torturous to you. Like
Hmm.
we have to address why like the idea of sitting still with the Lord and like abiding in him and like deeply trusting him is triggering and terrifying for you. Like
Yeah.
we really have to walk through those things. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Like I've experienced a lot of those things too, but like we have to walk through, but like why does your body have such a reaction to that?
Yeah.
Why does boredom make you anxious and your head spins, right? Why are you snapping at your kid because they're not getting out the door fast enough, right? Like there's nothing wrong with you. We have to know why you're responding that way because it's an innate reaction that you have, and your brain is so smart. God created you to protect in there, and your brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to, but we have to know what it's trying to protect against. And that stress over time chronically on the body is what creates the dysfunction. So we
Yeah.
have to be able to look into your story and know where sin was done to you, through you, and around you, and how it's impacted you, and either idolatries or identities or false cycles of freedom that like you've taken on at some point for whatever reason, survival, making it through a situation, but like how God needs to come in and help heal that so your body can truly heal.
Yeah, I think another side of that is like why am I turning to food for comfort?
Yes.
Why do I feel completely out of control with food? Why do I feel like I can't make healthy choices. Like there's so many roads that I think you could walk down with that.
Yeah.
And yes, like I know from working with you, like you value labs and data and all of
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, but really like integrating the spiritual and the emotional and the why, it
Mm-hmm.
makes such a difference. And I think the larger part of that conversation is kind of what I was saying earlier, is that like we've honestly been taught to disconnect from our bodies.
Yeah.
Like not even just we, like I think there's like a double-edged sword. Like I think you could say like we haven't been taught to connect with our bodies, to
Mhm.
see and understand. But then there's also a facet that like we've been taught to disconnect from it, to
Yeah.
just like be a machine and get it all done and have all of these things required of us and get them all done. And if we can't, we take that as some kind of personal failure. Like let's talk out, what does that look like in real life? Like women that are disconnected from their bodies. Some of the things you just mentioned, you're snapping at your kids, you can't sit down, you can't figure out why you can't have a healthier relationship with food.
Yeah.
Another one that I thought about is like you're always distracting yourself.
Yeah.
Like if it's not this task, it's this task, and if it's not that task, it's scrolling.
Yeah.
I think this shows up in a lot of different ways for us.
Yeah, I can always tell when I'm walking through like evening routine with a client, or I'm like, okay, we have a method we use with clients. It's like a 20-20-20 method. So I'm like, okay, for 20 minutes at the end of the day, I want you to turn electronics off. Like Netflix is gone, your phone's put away, and just have some stillness and some restorative time. And if I see like terror come over their face, I'm like, okay, we need to talk about this. Like, and they're like, well, I just get really anxious at night. And I'm like, well, then this is something we need to pay attention to. Why is
Mhm.
anxiety so high that your phone and Netflix scrolling and that? I mean, my husband and I watch TV before bed sometimes too, but like,
Right.
why is that a disassociation for you? Why is it somewhere where you need to go to just disconnect from what's actually happening within you?
Mhm.
Because what you're experiencing in your body or your mind is so uncomfortable that you need to go distract yourself from it. Um, the other things that can come up often is like I always tell our clients the subtle times, like you stop at a stoplight and you can't just sit at the stoplight, you grab your phone when you're
Yeah.
at a light. The idea like you just feel those internal like gut reactions to things. Somebody texts you and asks you to do something and you physically feel the annoyance to it because you already are tapped out, but you're figuring out how to do it. Like
Hmm.
the idea of saying no is more painful than just taking it on and doing it, even though you're already burned out.
100%. I remember seeing a meme in 2020 that was like, I love that millennials were, it was like, I love that millennials said, no, I don't want to be left alone with my thoughts. I'll figure out how to make bread instead. Like
Uh-huh.
we're
Yes.
constantly like at, and there's nothing wrong making bread, obviously, but it's
Yeah.
like, in that 2020 time when we were quarantined, how many of us didn't take that as an opportunity to like be still and rest and figure out, like just be. It was like,
Yeah.
how many hobbies can I fill with this time with? And I mean, the stopping at the stop sign is, I've I have been that person, and it's like she's still
Yeah.
there, like she'll still step in from time to time. But I mean, anybody that's been listening to the show for the last 6 months knows that I've been on this huge journey of slowing down and getting into my body and therefore into my life.
Hmm.
And it was, I mean, you said, you kind of positioned earlier, like, why when you're at a stop sign? And I can answer that. For me, it was like, I did not want to be left alone with my own thoughts. I didn't want to take a second and be aware or be present, because I felt like it was just going to eat me alive. All of the things that were required of me, all of the input and output. I was thinking about that earlier. Like my input in the last year has decreased so significantly. And as a result, my output has as well. And that doesn't mean that I'm lazy now. I mean, I think anybody that spent a day with me would say the complete opposite. I still have a lot of things that are required of me all day, but
Yeah.
just decreasing that load
Yes.
has made such a difference in not just my mental health and my spiritual health, but also in my physical health.
Yeah. It's like you operate in a daily basis. There's a lot of reels that go around about it now that I laugh, but like you operate like everything is an emergency. Like why am I
Yes.
rushing to scrub my kitchen counters?
Or
Why?
wash
Like,
my face or like,
yes. Yeah.
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 Because
And
it feels like it's an emergency because you are so hyper aware of everything that's
mm,
required of you.
yes.
And I will say this just from a personal conviction point, when I lowered my input, when I significantly decreased how much I was scrolling, how much I was taking in like the news and all of those kinds of things, I remember having, and I think I may have even talked about this on the podcast previously, but like having a moment where I was in my closet crying my eyeballs out, so hyper aware and convicted of how much time I had been wasting.
Yeah.
That, yes, like I had a lot on my plate, but I was adding to it by constantly scrolling my DMs and answering comments and then scrolling, content and the news and all that kind of stuff. And it was like, I have been having this almost like victim mindset to my own life of like, I can't do it all. I think like what had triggered it was I had told Jeremy, like, I don't even have the time to go to the grocery store. Like I'm having to use a grocery like and I still to this day use a grocery delivery because we had already paid for the plan. Like I do have time to go to the grocery now, but like I'm not gonna waste that money. But like
Yeah.
I had been like, I can't even go to the grocery. And then it was like God was like, girl, hold on. Like, why don't you take a second and document how much time you spent on your phone today? Why don't you go check your
Yeah.
screen time?
Yeah.
And that's not like a judgment call. Like I think I would hope that people know my voice well enough by now to know I'm not like you suck, like you're the problem.
Yeah.
But I had to like recognize that I was acting like I was a victim to my life and everything was urgent and rushing around. And it was because I was wasting these pockets of time that even if I wasn't filling them by doing something productive, I could have been being still,
Yes.
listening for the voice of the Lord, attuning to my children.
Yes.
And now on the other side, being better about that, I feel like I have so much more time in my day and therefore like connection to my life.
I love that you said attuning to it, right? Like there's so my husband gets so annoyed with me using that word because I'm like, but you're not attuning to like what I'm actually saying, right? And he's like, stop
Yeah.
saying the word. But I'm like, but I'm saying this, but like you're so busy in your head
Mm-hmm.
that you're not able to actually hear what's coming out of my heart right
Yep.
now, right?
Yep.
And because we're so busy, that's where we miss it. We miss our kids' hearts, we miss our spouse, like we miss ourselves in those
Yep.
situations. And most importantly, we miss God, right? Because
Yes.
we don't have that time. I call it the soul care, the time to like sit and like truly be still. And there's so much trending about nervous system right now. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of what we're describing is a hyperactive or hyper aroused nervous system state that you're operating in. And you want your nervous system activated. We want to be in a healthy window of tolerance where like what God designed us to, when there's a real threat, we can go respond to it and then we can come back to a regulated place in
Yeah.
there. But a lot of what happens now is we spend so much time activated that we're either like shut down and we're apathetic and we don't really even respond anymore in some of those situations, or we're consistently activated and like we just said, we're missing it. We're missing those things. And that soul care time, that time of like stillness, taking 10 minutes to be bored, just to lay there. And sometimes I'll just lay there and I'll say, like, all right, Lord, what do you have for me?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes like just sit still. I got
Mm-hmm.
nothing for you right now. But we lay there and we're like, but this also has to be really productive, right? Like, you need to give me my word for this year. You need to tell me the next thing I need to do. Give me the clarity on your mission for me. We're like, we have all, but he's like, just sit with me, like, be
Yeah.
still here. And that's where it starts, is our nervous system is constantly activated and operating out of this place that we start to become so disconnected in these other places of our life that when turning around, I see somebody's lab, they're like, but how did I even get here? Like, this didn't happen 3 months ago. This has
Right.
happened over the last 10 years, 15 years, maybe since you were a child. I don't know. We got to unpack that and work through both at the same time. The labs are so important, but we also have to
Yeah.
test there.
You got to like back it up a little bit. And going back
Yeah.
to the attunement part, that has been another wildly convicting part of this slowing down has been the things that I was popping off at my kids about
Yeah.
because I couldn't take a beat and see how I didn't see how they got there.
Yeah.
I didn't see like, to hypothetical, like I didn't see the big sister do something mean to the little sister.
Yeah.
And then I didn't see the little sister try to like process through it by herself. And then like big sister again. And then she's losing it. And you're like, oh my gosh, why are you losing it? We're just trying to leave. Like, what's your
Yeah.
problem?
Yeah.
And you've missed it, and now your kid feels completely unseen, and like having emotions is a negative and something worth disciplining, and you're like, oh wait, this is how like all the childhood baggage gets piled on, is you're just blowing through your life. And the reality is like you're gonna have moments like that.
Yes.
You can't attune to everything.
Oh,
And my thing for myself has kind of had to be like a 1% better philosophy, right? Because I have a all in tendency. Like I'm gonna do it all. I'm gonna do it all perfectly. And then I'm like mad at myself that I couldn't do it all perfectly. And we've started the process all over again, right? Like we're in fight or flight for a different reason. And so, and we've talked a little bit about nervous system stuff, which I admittedly just started really getting into an understanding again like 6 or 7 months ago. Like I knew I had a nervous
yeah.
system, but like, and I knew fight or flight meant, but that was kind of it. And you and I were voice memoing back and forth before we sat down, and you said something like that our emotions shouldn't drive, but that they are a signal.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that now, having been doing this work for some time. But I
Yeah.
really think that if you had said that to me this time a year ago, it'd have been like, "What do you mean? Signal for what?" And oh, they are definitely driving the car.
Well, I hear it all the time in the fitness of like, well, I just didn't have the motivation. And I'm like, well,
Mm,
motivation is an emotion, right? So like we're relying on that. And it's important to pay attention to them, right? But like they shouldn't be our final tool, right, for decision making. Discipline needs to come in and we need to pay attention to, what's actually going on or what's driving the emotion. But what I find often is that one, we're either unaware of the emotion
mhm.
that's coming up. Anger is a very popular emotion, but there's usually something behind anger, right?
Fear a lot of the time.
Yes, it can be a big there. And what I often see with clients is like, if you've ever heard the term name it to tame it, right? So, like, when I have this like big reaction, my amygdala response comes on, right? And my body is going to be driven by that. And that's usually where my nervous system response is going to come on. I'm going to become activated. But when I can name it, I can calm that amygdala response in the body and it kind of tame that reaction that's coming out. So it's really important to just be able to say, like, I'm really angry right now, or I'm really hurt right
Mm,
now, or I'm really frustrated, or I'm really overwhelmed. And I feel like all these things are on me, right? And I'm struggling to balance it all. But we sometimes feel like we're failing if we feel that way. So then it's really hard to name some of those things. But also, most of us, kind of what we talked about, like missing it and attuning to things, um, don't know how to name those things. We were never really
mhm.
allowed to growing up, or whatever
Yeah.
situation was, or we were taught, like we said, to disconnect, that emotions weren't good, emotions shouldn't be paid attention to, that emotions can be sinful, right? But like, yes, they can drive behavior, but we have to pay attention to why is that emotion there and then see what's behind it is really important.
And I think a huge, huge thing for me, and also that I've been practicing with my kids, is like letting myself feel my emotions, right?
Yes.
And this in the Christian world, it is seen as self control to just not feel your feelings,
Yeah.
to
Mm-mm.
like completely spiritually bypass yourself, slap a Bible verse on it, tell yourself the truth and like let it go and move on. And
Yeah.
what that I have found from personal experience, what that ends up doing is it's all just trapped in your body now. Like
Yeah.
you've done nothing with this very real biological response that God created you with. Like I always think about, we didn't have to have tear ducts.
No.
But there's a biological reason that we cry. And for 15 years, my personal story is I was on a freaking medication that made it so that I just didn't cry. Like I was just so numbed out that I just didn't cry. And so I jokingly, because I cry about everything now, and I'm like, I'm 15 years I'm making up for. You know what I mean? Like, just give me some space. But extending that to my children as well. I can admit that like a big emotion would come in and you're like, you're okay, it's all right. And I've lately been kind of now not letting kids be
Yeah.
aggressive, destructive,
Yeah.
etc. But like, my youngest has really big feelings, as second borns tend to. And she came home from something that like didn't go her way, that I kind of had a bad feeling about in the first place. And that girl laid in her bed and just like wept,
Yes.
just wept. And I just like laid there with her and let her do it. And you know what? She went to sleep and she woke up the next morning and she was like, not fine, but better than I expected from like knowing her history of reactions and responses to things.
Yeah.
And that was huge for me to be like, wow, like she just let it out and didn't try to thwart it. And like, look at where she is now.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge part of it.
Feeling your feelings is biblical. Like Jesus modeled it for us in the
Mm-hmm.
Bible. I pulled up in here, like Matthew 5:4. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will
Mm,
be comforted, right? Like we have to be able to grieve and to go through those phases of emotion because God can meet us in that.
mm.
We're not too far away from Easter coming off of it, but like we hear the Easter story every year, but like we skip over the fact that like Jesus was crying out, saying, my heart is grieved, right? Like, I am sorrowful. He was crying out blood. Like,
Mm-hmm.
imagine the severity of the emotion you have to be. I've had a lot of tears in my life. I've never cried out blood before, right? So,
Yeah.
like, he was experiencing his emotion and he was modeling that emotion for us. There's a reason it's in the scripture for us, right? But then
Yes.
at the end of it, he is saying, like, but not my will, right? But
Mm-hmm.
like yours be done, right? So the self-control is like, I am still going to be obedient to your will.
Yeah. And how much did like him letting that out
Yes,
help him be obedient?
yes,
When we're
God.
trying to just like, oh, like grit our teeth and like grind through it. And I just lately keep seeing God going, that's not what I'm asking of you. Like,
Yeah.
that's not what I want from my kids. Is that what we want from our kids?
No, he can meet you in it, right? I think of my kids when I like my daughter, right? She's the firstborn. She's a little bit more of my internal processor with things,
Mm-hmm.
right? I know when something's going on with her,
Mm-hmm.
but it takes a little bit to get her to start to like process it and walk it through. But once she lets it out, it's like, oh, I can sit with you in this. Like, I can
Mm-hmm.
hold you with this. Before that, like, I know something's going on with you, but I need you to bring it in confession because once you've brought it in confession, your heart is softened and you're more surrendered in it, and I can walk through this with you.
Yeah.
Says like what you described, like we're gritting our teeth and like clutching it for dear life. We're trying to remain in control at that point. And my son too, yes, he's the second child. He is loud and out with his emotions, but being able to sit with him in his emotions and letting him have his feeling so that he can get through the processing of it and then we can speak to it, right? I think we forget that.
Yeah, and I genuinely thought that that was strength. I really can like I thought that that
Yeah.
was what God was asking of me. It like I thought that good Christians only showed the joy and the peace and the patience and all of, the fruit of the spirit. And yes, like obviously we want all those to be evident in our lives, but the example that you just gave is so great of like Jesus cried out. He wept when his friend died. He
Yes.
showed clear frustration with the Pharisees. Like I think all the time about I'm terrible with references, but there's scripture that says like be angry and do not sin.
Yes.
It doesn't
Yeah.
say don't be angry because it's a sin.
Yeah.
Like our anger is understood. Like there are times where Jesus was angry. Now he didn't sin in it. He didn't, you know, chew people out. I mean, I guess he did get pretty direct with the Pharisees a couple of times, but he had his like
Yeah.
religious, spiritual reasoning, but like all of these things that I think a lot of Christians, especially if we were raised in the church, we are just completely out of touch with, and we
Yeah.
dress it up as strength and self control. And
Hmm.
then you have all of these Christians walking around with all of this deep seated anger or grief or anxiety like
Yeah.
anxiety is rampant within
Yeah.
the church. No matter how many times do not be afraid shows up, no matter how many times scripture shows us I mean, if we're honest, the remedy for anxiety, which is surrender
Yeah.
and bringing our petition to him. And I say that as someone I just said that spent 15 years on medication for anxiety. And then
Yeah.
it's a really interesting position for me now, right? Of as someone that like advocated for medication for a really long time and treated anxiety as though it was something like it grafted into my identity.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I mean, a lot of the time it was just a clue to like things that were going on physiologically and spiritually that I
Yes.
was just ignoring and bypassing because I didn't know how to deal with them.
I think the church does it too because it's really uncomfortable to sit with some
Mm,
big emotions.
wildly,
Really
wildly.
hard, right? Like when our kids are having an outburst, it's really hard to sit
Mm-hmm.
through that. People are staring at you if you're in public, like, right? You have to sit in this. And this is where the word empathy gets misused, right? But like that's empathy is actually being able to sit with somebody in it and not trying to fix them, right? Not
Yeah.
trying to fix their emotion, letting them experience it. You have to have connection before correction, right? So like at connecting with you and what we said, attuning to your heart and what's actually going on. You might be sinful in your anger, but you're not going to hear my correction of that until I attune to your heart. And John, right? The woman who's caught in adultery, imagine
Mm.
the amount of shame. Like she was caught in adultery. So it's not like somebody just like found out. You were caught in the middle of doing something, and Jesus connected with her heart
Yep.
first and
Yep.
then left with go away and sin no more,
Yep.
right? So we can speak truth, but sometimes we jump to truth without connecting to like sin comes from the heart. So let me connect with your heart first and understand what led you to that so that I can actually work through this with you.
Okay, I'm popping into this conversation about health to remind you about CrowdHealth because you should be able to use the money that you're spending on your health on things that actually help you feel better. Because I don't know about you, but a lot of time with traditional health insurance, it feels like, what am I even paying for? What are the benefits here? And why can't I use this on the things that actually help me feel good? And thankfully, with CrowdHealth, that is different. With CrowdHealth, you pay a monthly fee. This gives you access to a whole bunch of stuff, a team of people that will negotiate your bills, lower cost prescriptions and testing, vetted doctor list, and your own dedicated care team. Now, when something big happens, you pay the first $500 and then the rest of the crowd steps in, covers the rest of it. And I really think that this is how something like this is meant to work. So you can join CrowdHealth to get started for $99 for your first 3 months by using the code Speakeasy when you go to joincrowdhealth.com. That's joincrowdhealth.com, code Speakeasy. And also remember, CrowdHealth is not insurance, but this is how you can opt out of a very broken system. That's been huge for me with my kids as well in this journey. Connection before correction. I read Raising Attached Kids, which
Yeah,
was fantastic and also terrible because I read it when my kids were like 9 and 11 and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've gotten
I know.
so much wrong." And I can see it. Like I could see the evidence of how, if we're honest, like the ways that we were raised and the ways that, a lot of like Christian um parenting material will tell you to
Yeah.
raise your kids, which is like just discipline first and foremost. And I don't know anybody that's in the attachment parenting world that isn't pro discipline. Like
Yeah.
discipline is biblical.
Yeah.
But I had really I'm like pulling the curtain back here, but I had really taken the approach of like genuinely just talking things to absolute death with my kids, that like information feels like safety to me. And so
Uh-huh.
I felt like if I was explaining to them like why what they had chosen to do was wrong and what the impact of it was and how they could do it better, and I
Yep.
would get so frustrated because I'm like, my kids are freaking glazing over. And I'm like, I'm here. Like, I'm talking to you. I'm giving you so much more than a lot of kids are getting. Like, why are you still? And then you learn about the brain and you learn about the nervous system. And it's like these two were just like, just to take an example, just duking it out over something. And mom swooping in with like, theology and, feeling talk. And they're both
Yes.
like, I'm still pissed about the Barbie car. Okay. Like, I don't really care about your thesis statement here, woman. And so learning how to, and that's, I mean, learning, like I am still learning how to just step in it with them and let them feel their feelings and attune with them and connect with them. And yes, sometimes, what's the word I'm looking for? My brain just stopped working. Like, validate their feelings. Like, no, that is valid that you feel that way.
Yeah.
You still
Yeah.
can't beat your sister over the head with it or whatever that looks like. and
Yeah.
and allowing emotion to subside, and then we have the corrective conversation. And I
Yes.
will tell you, I can see the difference like
Yeah.
massively.
Yeah. We talked about the fear, right? Of like when you start to go through healing things and then you, or especially my kids are 8 and 6 or almost 6, and I remember going through these things, and then my initial thing that comes up as a mom is like, oh my gosh, how much have I already screwed my own kids
Mm-hmm.
up, right? And I'm thinking of all these things. And so let me reassure any mom who's listening right now and is thinking of how terrible mother they think they are, right? Like, as long as you get it right a third of the time,
Yes.
it would show that, like, as long as you do the repair a third of the time, like, you raise a securely attached child, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're going to create rupture. Every single one of us will. We will be responsible for our sin. But the biggest thing, especially after sitting with women often in their story, is that where the rupture really held on and the trauma attached is nobody was there to sit there and hold it with them. There was no accountability for it, and nobody came back to do the repair.
Yeah.
It was just brushed on. We act like it didn't happen and we move on, even though everything in your body is like, okay, but what about like how do I move forward from that?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do we do in the next situation? So the repair is what matters. Obviously, it's not an excuse to just constantly create rupture, but we always are thinking, especially as a mother, of like, well, how can I help my kids through this? The most impactful thing you can do to help your kids through it is help yourself through it first.
Come on. That's good.
You have to be able to sit with your own emotions so you can sit with your kids. You have to have your own connection with God and relationships so you can walk them through theirs and disciple them, right? Like you have to heal your own body and know how to nourish your own body so that you can help your kids nourish theirs, right? Your kids, our past preacher used to always say, like, your faith is better caught than taught, right? Like that applies to
Mm.
anything. They're going to model what they witness and what they experience more than what you say. And
Yeah.
when they watch you walk through that, when they watch you get mad at your husband and come back to repair and apologize, right? And take responsibility and ownership for it, they see in relationship, oh, that when I mess up, important for me to come back and do this, right?
Yeah. 100%. Well, and okay, so like what does that look like? Because I think there's probably a lot of women listening that are like, how the heck am I supposed to take care of myself first? And also, that is
Yeah.
another area of like subliminal messaging from the church of like self-care is selfish. And,
Yeah.
you don't, sacrifice, which, yes, motherhood is sacrificial. And even if
Yeah.
I will say also, I know that there are people that listen to this show that don't have kids.
Yeah.
I would do pretty much anything to go back in time and figure some of this stuff out before I had kids. Or I'm going to take that even further. I have friends that don't even want to have kids. You need to figure this out too, just so that you can, like, I
Yeah.
want you to be like aunties to my kids. And sometimes I need you to be regulated when I cannot, And so, like, this
Yeah.
is truly not just a like mom
No.
conversation at all, but like, we have, and I want to let me back that question up because I don't want to jump straight into like how we do this, because now I
Mhm.
want to pull in the like functional health part, because
Mhm.
I know that a lot of the people that listen to the show do have a little bit more of like a maybe not full blown crunchy, but like a silky,
Yeah.
like they're aware, right? Like they know about this world and testing and supplements and protocols. And we mentioned this kind of earlier. They like still feel stuck.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like what we're and we've covered really well like what we're missing when we only focus on like the food and the labs and the supplements is the spiritual portion. But I think what where people maybe kind of get to a point of like, okay, like I can only do so much is that work is like data answer, right?
Yes.
Like input output. What
Yeah.
we're talking about now is, I like to call it, it is the work. Like this
It is.
is the
Yes.
work. This
Yeah.
is the work where like I say this in the most humble way possible, but like if you have DM'd or commented in the last 6 months about how much I've changed, it's this. It is
Yeah.
this work. It is violent, terrifying, hard work. But I will stand here in the midst of it and say, like, you could never make me stop now. You
No.
could never make me stop.
It's the real refinement that God does,
Yes.
right? My pastor used to say, like, if you think of a block of marble, right? And I always think of that refinement process of like in the beginning, he's taken off big chunks of the marble.
Yes.
He's taken off big pieces. We're trying to make this sculpture. But then, like, as those big chunks go away, then we start to get into the like fine tuning, right? We're taking away small little pieces. Oh, like this little thing here. That is our forever process as a
Yes.
disciple, right? Is to always be walking through the refinement process. Some of those processes are, one of my friends will call it brutal. Like, they're so brutal, but like
I love
beautiful
that.
at the same time because you can see him in it. But like I jokingly tell my clients, I'm like, you think I'm joking, but like I've had moments where I'm like sobbing in a corner of my bedroom because it's so painful to walk through,
100%.
or I'm grieving things, or I'm like seeing a part of myself that feels so ugly and shameful, but like I'm facing it and having to confess it and walk through it, right? It is not the nervous system, pretty little tools, legs on a wall that Instagram would expect you to
Yeah.
like, or expecting it to feel like. Sometimes it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that can feel scary when you hear that, but like sometimes it is. But I have never felt more peace and joy than I have actually walking through those processes and learning how to hold both at the same time, to sit in the grief while also truly trusting who my father is and what he's walking me through and having the hope for what the purpose is that he's taking me through.
And I
So,
think that's a big part of it is knowing that it all has purpose, that
yeah,
like the big chunks of marble that are getting cut off in the beginning and the little bits throughout the process. Like I saw something, I think it was might have been Sadie Robertson. She was talking about like when things are hard. She was like, the difference for Christians is that I have hope, that I
hmm.
believe that this is for a purpose, that the
Yes.
crying in the corner of my bedroom or the having to let go of something that I thought was going to be a part of my life forever or whatever it is, like at the end of the day, it all has purpose. Because do you really believe that you serve a God that uses everything for
Yeah.
your good?
Yeah.
That's a hard question because sometimes you'll ask that question, you'll be like, I don't. I
Yeah.
don't actually believe that, you know? And so I think, like I was saying, like a lot of women feel stuck with like the testing and the supplements and the protocols. And I know that like that is a part of it for you. Like
Yeah.
a huge part of when I was working with you was like food, that
Hmm.
getting to a healthier place with food. And I remember you saying something about like, it's not just that you have the wrong diet, it's why you can't be consistent.
Yes. Yeah. It's the capacity piece, and your capacity, like we talk about the motherhood mental load or the mental load in general for women, and that capacity is actually determined by your nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
I It's your window of tolerance, like I talked about earlier. Trauma, life situations, different things can impact that window of tolerance and make it smaller. But the good thing is through the process of healing, we can actually make it bigger. What we were talking about earlier, right? Like my responsibilities in my life haven't changed. We're still very busy,
Yeah.
but the way that I feel internally and operate within those things is significantly different. My capacity to handle what comes at us is very different. So it's not about doing more, which is a lot of
Mm-hmm.
what most of us think. When somebody comes in to work with us, we're also assessing like where is your current capacity to take on things, and then I'm not going to give you things that are beyond that. I'm going to give you things within that capacity, and then as your capacity grows, then we can increase the things that we're focusing on at the same time.
Yeah.
And one of our practitioners is in her mid-20s. So she works with a lot of our clients that are out of that stage, and she's gone through some of this healing work. And I was like, Darby, I hope you know like how one proud of you I am that you're going through this, but two, like how much I wish I did that or
Oh
knew
my
this
gosh.
before I had kids, because I was like, you have no idea how impactful this is going to be for you as you walk through the next stages of your life with marriage and children and all those different things. I was like, you're going to see the impact in yourself now, but I was like, you're going to see the impact generationally once you have children from what you experience too. And it's huge.
Oh, it's huge. I can't imagine what it's like to be like I've been set up for success because I'm, 37, 11 years into motherhood going, oh, I've been completely detached from my body and
Yeah.
from my mind. And that has impacted how I eat and how I move my
Yeah.
body, whether it looks like eating trash and not moving or eating nothing and overworking my body and everything in between. Like I have run that spectrum back and forth on nourishment and caring for my body. And one of the things, and I keep being like, another thing that we talked about, but it's, it was just so much, but like the divine order
Yeah.
of those things. And I
Yeah.
think that that is really helpful. I know, like, when we kind of close out in a minute, there's opportunity for people to connect with you and work with you if they're like, oh my gosh, I need this and I don't know where to start. But healing starts with God,
Yes.
not with behavior.
Correct.
And regardless of people work with you, if people work with you or not, or work with someone, like there is healing available to them. I will personally attest to, I think like having someone to walk through those things with makes it easier and it is helpful to have a guide, but I understand that that's not available to
Yeah.
everyone. What what does it mean to get back into like our divine order of things and
Yeah.
what impact does that have on our healing?
Yeah, I think, the phrase of like, if you want to know where your priorities are, look at your schedule and look at your bank account, and you could know where your money and time is going. And that's very, very true. And I think most of us have our order of how we operate in our world has become like job or career, spouse, or if we're married, right? Children, if we have kids, and then like we're left with the breadcrumbs that
Yep.
come in there, right? And a lot of the statements that I hear from women is like, well, I can't pay for this because my kids need this and that. And they feel guilt investing in themselves and taking care of themselves. And I'm like, but you're meant to work through these things with God first. Like when God works in your heart and is working through you first, and you go through that refinement process with Him and healing wherever it is that needs to be walked through, then you see it. Our clients, we host retreats and things for clients in our community, and everyone every time jokingly is like, I don't even know how I got here. Like, how did I on a retreat with you talking about my marriage and motherhood and things like I joined to talk to you about my health, right?
Yep.
Because when you start to work through your health is just a reflection of an area of where you need to come back into alignment and take care of yourself, right?
Yep.
The capacity has driven you back there. When you start working through your health, you start seeing that overflow into your marriage. And then when you start seeing that overflow into your marriage, what's happening with your children is a reflection of what's going there. You see the overflow into your kids. And things naturally move back into divine order because you put God back in the place where he's supposed to be
Yep.
first
Yep.
by working through this. We're not talking about, I'm trying to lose 20 pounds because I want to fit into a size 4 pair of pants because that's going to give me worth and make me feel good about myself. Like,
Which is one of the things that I love about you and like drew me to you in the first place.
yeah. And I have had that thought at some point.
Oh,
Like, a lot
yeah.
of women have had that thought, and I get it. We got to walk through why that thought exists
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
So that's, where we start with someone is going to very much depend on what do you have the capacity for right now? Like, is the testing and supplementation and working one-on-one really overwhelming to start with? start in our community where we're going to
Mhm.
walk through what I like the Christian counseling side, the trauma informed side. We're going to navigate why does your nervous system operate the way this does? And then how do we pull those things from a biblically based lens so you can start to move closer to the healing?
Yeah. And what you said about like the order of priority,
Yeah.
I think also really goes back to what we kind of talked about earlier about the urgency and the feeling like you're rushing through your life and like you're disconnected from it. I told this multiple times on the show, but that like a huge part of the last 6 months was God pretty much took like if you had asked me to like give you a list of my priorities and he like did like this, like turned it like a clock or a what are those things called?
I know what you're
The
talking about.
the sand hourglass. There it is.
Yes.
Boy, like just turned it over. Like, because I definitely had work. And if I'm
Yeah.
honest, probably like perfection was like my second priority. Perfection from myself in everything that I did. And then I would like to say that like my marriage and my honestly, probably like my house and like orderliness, and then like my marriage and my kids. And I like thought that that was good. I was like
Uh-huh.
this is like I'm doing important work and I'm providing for my family and I'm doing everything really well, and God was like, "Hey, we're going to completely flip this on its head. We're going to go ahead and put me at the top
Uh-huh.
cuz I don't really even see myself on the list right now." And I had a relationship with God 100%, but it was a like subliminal functioning
Yes.
side piece,
Yeah.
you know. And he was like, we're gonna go ahead and like put God at the top, and we're gonna put your husband right like under that because he's been getting freaking scraps. And then we're gonna do your kids.
Uh-huh.
And like, how about you make the list? What would that look like if you were a priority? If caring for yourself and nourishing yourself and finding out what do you like, what do you enjoy. And I know for a fact that there are women listening to this that part they're like, oh Blake, you gotta like, I talked about this in my stories the other day, like, oh, you gotta be careful with that. You gotta make sure that you don't let that get out of whack. And I'm sure plenty of people missed, I went on like an absolute rant about it, but just that like I do think that there are women out there that maybe
Mm-hmm.
they pride is more at the forefront, that
Oh, yeah.
selfishness is their struggle, and
Yeah.
they don't need to be reminded to love themselves. But I also know for a fact and a half that there are plenty of us that we're not even getting scraps, that
Mm-hmm.
we think that humility and service to the Lord looks like burning ourselves out and
Yes.
having no joy or
Yeah.
capacity and nothing left. And that has been a huge part of the journey of the last 6 months is like, I got to this point where I was like, I don't know what I like. I don't
Yeah.
know what I enjoy. I don't know what I want. I don't know what makes me feel good or rested or nourished. And that was terrifying because do I want that for my daughters?
Yeah.
Do I want daughters that don't know themselves, that don't know
Yeah.
anything about themselves and can't care for themselves? No, absolutely not. I don't want that for any woman that I love. Why am I an exception to that? And
Yeah.
so that's been a huge part of it was like letting myself make the priority list and convincing myself through talking to God about it a whole lot that like God likes that.
Mm-hmm.
The God's
Yeah.
like, yeah. No, that's great. Because do you see how you're a better mom? Do you
Yes.
see how you're not going to bed every night feeling like you just failed everybody in every single way? Like, I
Mm.
haven't gone to bed like that in probably coming up on a year. And I would say that a part of that is that, like, I started, oh my gosh, taking care of myself.
Yeah.
It's like a
Yeah.
novel concept.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that we don't recognize. Mine was control. I would have never told you that I was a quote unquote controlling person because I viewed it as such a like bad thing. But control was safety for me. But like God
100%.
really showed me how much I wasn't trusting him, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I was leading my life, not him. And I remember a few years ago, he gave me this vision that I need to let my husband lead because even in my own home, I was the control at the same time. And I was like, absolutely not. What do you mean? Like,
Hard pass. Thanks so much.
hand off control. Um, But it was the thing that like I was fighting my in my marriage, right? That like I was pushing against and trying to fight my way to and control my way to, that as soon as I actually moved things back into divine order, and I say this like it was just such an easy process, like that this was me crying in the corner of my room.
Yeah.
Um, it was not an easy process, but our marriage, I can tell you at year 10 is better than it ever was at year
Mm-hmm.
1
Mm-hmm.
because I put him where he was supposed to be in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah,
take care of my
same.
body better. I feel better in my skin at almost 40 than I did at 25
Mm-hmm.
because he is the leader in these things.
Yeah. Yeah, same. I think we've had very same experiences. And what's really the wildest part is anytime I talk about this, my DMs catch on fire.
Yeah.
Because, and I was talking with my best friend about it today. She was saying, like, gosh, I had this phrase of coming home keeps coming
Hmm.
up for us. And there
Yeah.
is like totally this movement that I am so thankful that God allowed me to be a part of women coming home. They're coming home to God, they're coming home to their actual homes and to their children and to their own bodies.
Yes.
And I don't have like near the education or capacity or understanding, scientifically and biologically that you do, but just as like a bystander and as a or as a participant, I am so passionate about women like getting back in their bodies. There's
Yes.
been so much that's been taken from us by so many different things, by second wave feminism,
Yeah.
by the 24-hour news cycle,
Yep.
by the way that we've been taught and told to raise our children. And I really think that God is doing so. I think God's doing something really interesting in both genders because I'm also simultaneously seeing so many men step up, like
Yes.
as women soften
Yeah.
and sit back in our femininity and come home, men are like stepping into the gap and they're filling that space with leadership and authority and masculinity. And it's so freaking cool. And like I think about, when Charlie Kirk died and this revival
Yeah.
breaks out, and we didn't know what that was going to look like. And obviously, like it's going to quiet down. That's
Yeah.
just like how things like that work. But what I feel like it's quieted into
Yeah.
is to like people coming home and shifting their priorities and getting more in touch with the Lord and therefore themselves. And I do feel like it's kind of just gotten started. Like people are like getting their sea legs in it. I'm like, I can't wait to see what this generation, because I do feel like it's kind of concentrated in millennials a little bit. Like
It
it
is.
doesn't
Yes.
discriminate, but it's concentrated in millennials because we've had a really wild experience, that like, what is this going to look like when we feel confident in it, when we're like running in it, when it feels natural and we're just like yoked with the Lord. And I do think that a part of that is like the people that feel stuck figuring out what next steps look like and taking those next steps forward. And I will personally like advocate for people working with you. And I know that that's there's like some options for that.
Yeah. Yeah. We we need more women to step into, right? I've said it for years of like your hormones are responders. They're not a root issue. They are responding to the environment they are operating in. And
Yeah.
we as women have been operating out of alignment for what God created us to do. Yes, the feminist movement, a lot of those things has really driven a lot of that culture. And it's just, I mean, don't work out of your house, right? But like, we're operating in an environment that our bodies were not created for sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that is a huge part of why our hormones are dysregulated. We feel off, like our marriages feel disconnected. All of these things come into play. And 100%, I feel the same. The more I have let my husband lead, the more he has been submitted under Christ and the more
Yeah.
he has left our home. And it's been so fun to
Oh my
watch
gosh.
how it goes. And
And I
yes.
like him more. Like I was already obsessed with him. And now I'm like, come here, you. Like this is and it's like, it's because this is how it was designed to
I feel
work.
safer. Yes, I feel
Yes.
safer the more I'm surrendered in it.
Yes. Yep.
Yes, 100%. Yes. So when you're coming in to work with us, there's a lot of ways you can work with us, but the main two ways that people will come is through our community. It's the Faithfully Nourished community. You get access to me for 3 to 4 calls a month. We will go through, I will have a call where I will do some nervous system supporting things with you to help get your body regulated and increase that capacity. There's a live coaching call that we do monthly. We go in 20 directions on that coaching
Hmm.
call. Bring nutrition, bring marriage stuff, whatever it is. And those are all recorded and left for a resource library for people to come back to. And right now it is a lower cost price point, so it will shift. So you guys, if you're listening, get access to the lower cost price point and you will stay grandfathered there as long as you
Yeah.
want. Or if you're like, I really do want to walk through the functional testing and work through the nutrition piece while I master some of these things, that's what my team of nutrition therapy practitioners are for. So you can always come in and work with us in a one-on-one setting. And if we're not the right fit for you, then we will guide you into the steps of where you might need to go for what you're needing. But
Yeah.
for anybody who's listening, for the first 30 people, there's a link you guys can use to get a 30-minute consultation with me for free. And we can just dive through what's going
Yeah.
on, and I'll offer you some advice, and we can see if working with us is the right path for you.
Yeah. And like, I'm not gonna do like a sales pitch, but I will say, as someone that has worked with you and admittedly probably needs to circle back and do that again, um, it's so like normal. First of all, you're just like great. And so talking to you is just like
Yeah.
there's no judgment. There's no like, oh, she's perfect and expecting perfection of me. There's no like
No.
weird
Yeah.
standards. Like you are just trying to help people integrate into their lives. And I will even say, I think like when we were working together, the nervous system part was like just coming on board. So that wasn't even like a huge part of it, which is why I'm like, time to circle back. But just that like you just taught me how to eat like
Yeah.
normal and
Yeah.
not feel hungry, but also have a healthier relationship with food and not feel like I was starving myself or not letting myself have what I wanted, but felt like energized and nourished and like I was getting what I needed. And it was like, you've said this a couple of times, but just like met me where I was, like not where you wanted me to be or where
Yeah.
I wanted me to be, but
Yeah.
just like, this is where I'm at. This is what I have the capacity for, which is why I do think this is more of a conversation off air, but like why I think it would be interesting to work together now because like who you worked with doesn't even exist anymore. Like I was
Yeah.
going 100 miles an hour and just trying to like throw together like an adult lunchable so that I could, eat as fast as possible, which I still like like who doesn't love an adult lunchable? But like I think it would be so interesting to do that work now as someone that's
Yeah.
done some of the nervous system side and has like a slight like a minimal understanding of the nourishment side to be like, okay, but like how good can we get this now, with all parts working. So we'll talk about that later. But yes, like just wanted to genuinely, I've chased so many rabbits trying to feel better and
Yeah.
trying to feel like myself, and I've had multiple coaches and in multiple areas, and I if when people message me like you are who I send them to, and you have also like helped me so much, and my incredible assistant came from you who like changed my life. Talk about changing my capacity. Like her coming on board made such a difference
Chelsea's a
last year.
godsend.
She is a
Yes.
saint and a half. I'm like so appreciative. I think I've voice memoed you like multiple times, just being like, oh my God, thank you so much for her. But yeah, just I can't sing your praises enough. And I wouldn't have you on the show and let you offer your services to people if I didn't like feel that way. So big
Thank you.
fan.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. God's done a lot of work in me. I will tell you, if you come into our world, like I will be a truth teller. I have a
Yeah.
gift in that sense, but
Yeah.
I will never try to guide you through something and be honest with you about what I haven't experienced myself.
Yeah.
Because I will always be very clear about how I've been through it too. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we all have. So there is no judgment ever, just honesty.
Yeah, can confirm. Thank you so much for coming on the show again and sharing all this with people. I hope that people connect with you. If nothing else, follow Brooke on social media. She has like a wealth of knowledge. But yeah, thank you for
Thank you.
this.